I'm back, which means it is time for the Policy Lightning Round. Are you guys ready? So we are here today talking about elections and learning about our government dysfunction. But part of why we all care about that, not only is because we're patriots who are proud of our country, but also because the stuff that doesn't get dealt with is the real stuff that matters. It's healthcare, it's roads, it's water, it's education. And so we wanted to make sure we took time today to talk about some of those things so that we could hear from each other and how these issues are impacting us across the country, so we could learn from the amazing Bipartisan Policy Center who study this stuff all the time, and also so we could see if there is common ground between people on these issues. So please take out your phones again if you are on your smartphone. Yes, get ready. We have our first question. If you have your clicker, make sure you have it. And if you need any help, just raise your hand. We've got our facilitators walking around. But once a large-scale energy project has been planned, sited, and readied, how long on average should it take, not how long do you think does it take, but should it take the government to review and issue the necessary permits to start construction? Answer 1, 6 months. Answer 2, 1 year. Answer 3, 2 years. Answer 4, 4+ years. How long do you think it should take once an energy project is ready to actually begin construction? Now, we had a pre-survey that got sent out to all of you beforehand. We had almost 500 people respond, so thank you. I want to send you surveys forever because you're a great audience. But we asked you about if there's going to be a new clean energy project put in your community, what do you think? We basically saw there was a good amount of support, although people felt like this was still a complicated issue. What's going to be the environmental impact? How many people get to say that where the actual energy project is put? Do we have more concerns than that? So for our question of how long do we think it should take, over half of the audience thinks less than six months or less, and the other 41% think about a year. I'm going to call up Jason Grimay from the Bipartisan Policy Center, their president, and then a policy expert so that we can find out what's the real answer. Thanks, guys.
All right, so it is the beginning of the lightning rounds. I am going to be the introducer of most of them. And just for a little bit of context, we do this because we want to make people's lives better. We want to actually pass laws. The good news is Congress is actually doing more of that than you might imagine. In the last year, major infrastructure legislation, Violence Against Women's Act, Safer Communities Act, which was the first gun control legislation in about a generation. They passed the Kigali Climate Treaty. And so this is simply to say that if you work hard and you're strategic and you try to govern a divided country, you can get things done. So we are going to start off with the simple issue of climate change, just to kind of give you all a drum roll. You all just agreed through your representatives to spend $400 billion through 2 big pieces of legislation to speed up the clean energy transition, right? We all know that climate change is a global crisis. I think most probably agree we have to have US leadership. I think all the science says we're running out of time. So that's the good news. As you've just seen, the challenge is, will we be actually able to build anything in time? And I appreciate the positive polling. You would be exceptional if, in fact, this polling landed where you are when things and jackhammers and other things start to make a little bit of noise. We talk about how long government should take, but we want to pose a little bit of a harder question. We're kind of the problem on this one. You've all heard of NIMBY, not in my backyard. There's a new idea called banana, build absolutely nothing anywhere near anyone. We are going to all have to be part of this solution, which doesn't just mean wanting it. It actually means recognizing that the entire country has got to go through a massive transition, and we're going to have to build a whole bunch of stuff. So this is the question that my colleague, Lesley Jantarasami, who works in our energy program, is going to say a little more about, and then we'll have probably a little more voting. Thanks.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. So the reality is it takes a really long time to permit infrastructure projects in this country because we have more than 15 different federal statutes governing the siting, the permitting, and operation of most types of large energy infrastructure. And then on top of that, then we have individual states, local governments, tribal governments, anybody who needs to be involved in this, they also have their own unique requirements. And many of these laws are for good reasons, right? They're for environmental protection, for historic or archaeological preservation, and others are for safety, right? So we need all of these. They're all necessary, they're important, but the process itself has become really bloated and inefficient. It's mired in bureaucratic delays. And for example, you all said 6 months. More than half of you think 6 months should be the time. Well, on average, we have research and studies that show that just the federal environmental review part can take between 3.5 and 6 years to complete. And so we're talking very, very long time for some of these projects. And then we have, what Jason was mentioning, the NIMBYism, the people who have their voice in these local projects, and they say, no, I don't want this. But how can we turn that around to say, yes, in my backyard, YIMBY, I want this. And why? Well, because the reality is that we're playing with borrowed time when it comes to climate change. We need to update our aging and polluting infrastructure with the types of energy technologies that can power us into the next century, while at the same time helping our country achieve net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2050. And that's the goal that science tells us we need to avoid the worst impacts of climate change. So we need this all of the above energy solution. It includes things like solar power, wind power, but also nuclear, natural gas, hydro, geothermal, and the backbone infrastructure we need to make it work, which is the electric transmission lines, the pipelines that carry fuels, and things like electric vehicle charging stations. So it's complicated, but the cost of many of these technologies has fallen dramatically over the past decade. So it is absolutely within our reach to do this and to have energy that's reliable, affordable, and clean, helping to propel us to this net zero climate goal. So to do that, though, we need to build a lot of stuff. We need to build it fast. And so, 2050 sounds like, oh, that's really far away. But if every project takes 5 to 10 years to permit and site and build, 28 years is going to fly by, and we're only going to have a fraction of what we need. So BPC sat down with some of the sharpest minds in the country to recommend policies to break this permitting logjam. And so together, we're pushing for requirements that agencies will work together concurrently so that we don't have this process of sequential review where everybody goes one at a time. And we can also put common sense limitations on the types and time frame in which people can sue to slow or stop a project. We can make exclusion categories for projects that have already been well studied and shown to cause no harm. So we can reform our permitting system while maintaining environmental and other protections. We won't be able to do and meet our climate targets in time if we aren't able to build things more quickly. And so we believe that this is in our ability to rise to meet this challenge, and we're pushing for these solutions. And I am out of time, so please, if you want to talk more about these issues, we are going to be in the breakout session.
Yes, awesome. All right, guys, next test. We have one more test for you. So now is the test of being able to talk and listen to each other. In a minute, I'm going to ask you to turn to the people around you between 2 to 4 to 6, however much is comfortable, to turn your head around and actually start thinking about how would we apply this. We have facilitators throughout the room. Facilitators, if you could raise your hands, who are going to be walking around listening and actually capturing what you're saying. We also have about 500 people online talking about this too, and we're going to try and see where do we have common agreement on this topic. So I'll read the topic and then we'll set the timer. So if we could snap our fingers and have an expedited clean energy permitting process, what would you want to make sure was still a part of the process? What seem like reasonable considerations and timelines? If we're going to make it faster, what absolutely cannot be lost? All right, so you can turn to each other. We're going to give you 4 minutes, and I will let you know when you have 2 minutes left. Go. All right, we've got 2 more minutes, 2 more minutes. Do we know if Ryan and Jasmine are?
Yep.
What are you seeing? A lot of environmental impact, community regulations, less than 6 years, okay.
That seems like that helps when they put the color, yeah.
A ton. All right, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Time's up. Thank you guys so much for sharing your wisdom and your words. We will now show what you guys had to say, and I know probably all of you can't read it, but I'll just pull the top lines. It seems like in general we felt like community input was still really important, that the public needs to be still included in this process even if we're expediting it, that we want better financial incentives, that we want to make sure that it's safe. We don't want to be expediting something and then risking our community and our families. And when it comes to the timeline, it sounded like decreased regulation while still keeping it safe was important. I definitely saw a lot of comments about 6 years is too long. We need more energy before that. And that in general, wanting to consider that, you know, communities can become independent in these policies. So thank you guys. We'll also have this available too, but it does seem like there is a decent amount of understanding between all of us. So if we can take those phones and clickers back out, we have one final poll question. So I know we're still learning about this, but please check all that apply. So again, if you're on a remote, what you'll have to do is click the first number you want, hit the SIM button, which is the bottom right, hit your next selection until you're done with all of them, and then hit send. So to expedite the energy process, which ones would you be in favor of? Option 1, requiring simultaneous reviews. Option 2, reducing the time that people can sue to stop a project. Option 3, streamline approvals for low-risk projects. Option 4, establish reasonable timelines for review and permits. And option 5, increase accountability for delays. As you're voting, I'll just let you guys know that right after this, if you were excited about energy, if you liked being able to talk about it, if you want to learn more and ask more questions about it, you'll be able to go in the Kirby Auditorium, which is just straight back, and we're actually going to have a policy deep dive with Lesley and some of the other experts who can talk about what this really means for our future. So right after we do the polling results, feel free to stand up and go there. Otherwise, you can stay in here for the next panel. And our survey should be coming soon. And remember, just select all that apply. All right. And if you have any questions with your polling remote control, just raise your hand. We'll help you. Perfect. Okay, so it seems like top one, requiring simultaneous reviews from different policy agencies at the same time is pretty popular. Establishing reasonable timelines for review and permit permits, increasing accountability for delays, streamlining approvals for low-risk projects, and it seems like we still want people to be able to stop these projects when they need to. Awesome. Thank you guys so much. These are the types of solutions we can find when our government learns to work again. All right. So again, if you want to go to the Kirby Auditorium to learn more about energy, please do that now. Thank you. I'll be back.